Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell. And today we're going to answer a letter from somebody who is wondering if her friendship is salvageable. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners.
No, we are not professionals. We are not trained in any of this. We are not grief counselors. So please take our advice as you see fit. We're only here to offer our humble musings to hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs about the incredibly rewarding but mostly confusing experience that is love.
All right, friends, let's get into today's letter. So this letter comes from Serena, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing from East Coast College Town, USA. I am a 31-year-old woman living on the East Coast, and I am coping with the loss of both of my parents who died 7 months apart 2.5 years ago. I'm writing because I'm considering ending my friendship with one of my closest and oldest friends of over 15 years. Let's call her Brooke. Brooke and I have been extremely close friends since middle school. Especially when we were teenagers, she was the best and purest friend that you could imagine. Extremely empathetic, accepting, loyal, attentive, and nurturing. She was a balm among the catty, false, insecure, and jealous friendships that dominated high school. I moved across the country for college, and while we haven't lived in the same state since, we managed to stay good friends, talking often and visiting each other. I'm deeply sad, confused, and shocked that I'm considering ending our friendship now after so many years. In short, Brooke has not at all been present or consistent since the passing of my parents. Especially following the loss of my mom, the parent who died most recently, who I was much closer with and who Brooke knew well growing up, she has essentially ghosted me for months at a time. She would text me to tell me that she was thinking of me, was so sorry about what I was going through, ask me how I was doing, and request a catch-up phone call soon. I would respond right away with my availability for a call, and she would not reply at all for a month or two. Then she would text me again saying she was sorry, she went MIA, that she's been so stressed out with school, but would I be free for that phone call soon? I'd offer some times and days to call, and again, she wouldn't reply for another month or two. This cycle has repeated on a loop for the last 2.5 years. If another friend was behaving this way, I would have stopped engaging with them altogether, assuming that they didn't actually care about connecting with me. But to complicate things, I know that Brooke's absence is not due to her not caring about me or thinking of me often. She has always struggled with extreme anxiety, and I believe the problem here is that she's actually so anxious about being a good friend, saying the right thing, helping and being supportive, that she gets overwhelmed by her guilt and anxiety, shuts down completely, and goes MIA, until she brings herself to make another attempt, and then her anxiety overwhelms her again. I have empathy for the cycle that she's caught in and feel sorry, based on years of knowing her, that she's probably been beating herself up over this. But I'm stuck on the fact that as the person who lost my entire immediate family in the space of 7 months, that my emotional needs, at least for the time following my parents' deaths, should have permission to supersede her own emotional hangups, at least for the time being. There have been times in our friendship where one of us was having a harder time than the other and had less bandwidth to be a good and present friend, so the other one was much more attentive and supportive for many months, if not over a year at a time. When she expressed guilt about this in the past, I reminded her of my philosophy on long-term friendships, that friendships are a marathon, not a sprint, and that there will inevitably be times when one friend needs the help of the other more, and vice versa. But that over the span of many decades, what I imagine the length of deep friendships to be, these times will surely balance each other out in the end. But her absence in the wake of the worst thing that has ever happened to me, and will probably ever happen to me, is making me doubt whether the friendship is salvageable. If she can't find a way to cope with her discomfort and anxiety and put on her big girl pants to show up for me when both my parents have just died, will she ever be able to overcome her hangups and show up for me? At the same time, I know that she has been an excellent friend to me in the past, and that she's one of a small handful of people I'm still in touch with who was close to my mom. I'll never be able to make a new friend who knew my mom while she was alive. Ugh. For what it's worth, I have other incredible friends who have been more present and supportive during this time than I could have imagined. In fact, I've learned a lot from them about how to be a good friend to someone who is grieving. This stark contrast has also helped me see how very absent Brooke has been in comparison. A caveat I want to add is that I have not asked Brooke why she's been absent or brought up my own feelings about our friendship at all. I'm someone who is extremely averse to anything resembling confrontation. This is something that I know I need to work on, but I'm not sure that I feel ready to work on it in this way right now. I'm not sure that this would be worth it, or whether I should save this emotional energy for the many other difficult issues in my life. I'm at a loss in the wake of loss.
All right, my darling. Thank you so much for writing and trusting us with this very tender letter. If it is not abundantly clear by all of our mean during your letter, Sam and I are very sorry for your losses and for what a transformational time this should be, or this is, I'm sure. And we're sorry that you're feeling let down by what should have been a really important part of your support system. You know, I feel really moved by your analogy about friendships being a marathon. And I keep picturing you, you know, as somebody who does long distance running. You know, I'm picturing you on this race, and you are trying really hard, and your body is being taxed and your heart is being taxed, and you are experiencing all these new sensations, and you are so simply saying, like, I need more, I need support, I need those calories, I need that hydration. And in friendship terms, that's saying, I need you, I miss you, I feel scared. Can you tell me that you're here with me? I repeat your own metaphor back to you just because I think it's important to start off on that foot, to say that these needs during this time are really valid and important and vital to your survival, you know, the ability to be seen and supported. People are afraid of death. People are awkward around death. People don't know what to say. But that is not as big as your vital needs right now, that you absolutely deserve to have met, if not by this person, then by the surprising and loving community that you've found over the last couple of years. Sam and I are going to talk about ways in which we would or wouldn't approach this friend, our perspectives on ending friendships, when to do it, when not to do it. And most importantly, we're just going to affirm that all of the choices that you're about to make surrounding this person, we trust are the right ones. You have everything you need right now to make the right decision in regards to this person in your life. But first, we are going to take a very quick break.
All right, everyone, welcome back. Yeah, Serena, I echo everything that Sierra said before we went on to our break. You know, I'm so sorry that you have lost both of your parents in such a short span of time. You know, and I know that the process of grieving through that, those terrible losses for you is not something that is going to be done after 2.5 years, and that it is probably something that is continuing for you. You know, that you're learning new things about the ways in which that grief shows up for you. And that, like, the process of figuring out how to move forward from the days, weeks, months after this happened is also part of the grieving process, right? And you looking at this relationship that you have with Brooke and saying, oh my God, in the worst time of my life, this person couldn't show up for me. And that's a new type of grief that I have to manage as well, is really challenging. And so I want to just, like, name explicitly that it sounds like Brooke showed up really poorly for you in that time of grief. It sounds like she wasn't a good friend. And we can explain all of the reasons why she wasn't a good friend to you, because, like Sierra said, people are shitty when it comes to talking about and understanding death. People are not great at knowing how to support and love people who are grieving. sounds like she has a lot of anxiety and puts a lot of pressure on herself about being a good friend, managing the situation well, and that is something that is impacting her. And I think I really appreciate that you named that you have empathy for all of the different ways that that Brooke experiences the world. And I also have empathy for her. I have empathy for everyone who shows up badly when grief is on the table, right? It's hard. It's difficult. It's really challenging to be in space with folks who are grieving because we are so poorly taught about how to handle grief, especially in the United States, especially in white cultures, right? Like we just pretend like it's not happening and we go back to work, that's how we manage grief. And so I have a lot of empathy for folks who are not practiced or haven't experienced it, don't understand it, because we don't do a lot of teaching about how to manage community grief in an effective and meaningful and important way. And this person didn't show up for you in the time that you needed them to, for all of the different reasons that I've listed and probably 27 other ones that we don't know about, right? She didn't show up for you when you needed it. And that's painful. And it's hurtful. And I'm sure that she meant best. I'm sure she's doing the best that she can with the skills and tools she has available to her, because we all are at any given moment. And also sometimes that best isn't enough, right? That best is hurtful. That best is disappointing. And I think that I appreciate the empathy that you're offering to this person. And I think that she deserves empathy for what she's experiencing. But that doesn't mean that you have to just forget how much this hurt you, how much you were disappointed by this, and how much it's making you question whether or not this person can be there for you in times of trouble, right? Which are inevitable. I know that this is the worst thing that's ever happened to you, and I pray that it is. And also, bad things are going to continue to happen, because that is what life is. Good things and bad things will continue to happen to us. And this person is showing you in lots of different ways that they don't know how, or they can't, or they won't, or whatever it is. They won't be able to show up for you in the way that you need them to, right? Like that is what they've shown you in this. And I think it's understandable that you are questioning whether or not this relationship is something that you want to put time and energy into, given that it sounds like you had a lot of other really wonderful people in your life that showed up for you at the worst time and were able to actually be there. And I'm not saying like handled it perfectly, like brought you the exact right meal or whatever, but even the act of sitting with you in the discomfort of what grief is, even in the taking you out and making sure that you had a good time. Like there's so many different ways that we can approach supporting people who are experiencing grief. And it sounds like Brooke couldn't find that way. And I think it's justifiable that you are now questioning whether you can get past this, right? Like whether you can overcome this deep and understandable hurt that you're experiencing from this friend who really, really let you down.
And I know that you are self-described as conflict averse. I am too. And I don't really know what the threshold would be for me in terms of like my needs, the value of the friendship, my overcoming the fear of the conflict or whatever. But I do want to push you a little to say that if you felt like you had the capacity right now or in the future, because you may not have capacity right now, but if you felt like when you have capacity, I do think that you are well within your rights, and you're well within the bounds of your friendship and the respect and the longevity of this friendship to have a conversation with this friend about the ways in which you felt disappointed. And this is not a conversation about scolding. This is not a conversation about hurting your friend's feelings. This is a conversation about being known, and at the end of the day, that's what is happening here. She's not able to show up in the vulnerability of death and grief and all of that to know you, to know what's going on. But you deserve, if you want to to tell her, hey, I needed you. I missed you. I feel hurt by your absence. A lot of the times I am like I'm more likely to be like, I think it sounds like you should just drift away from this person and stop expecting things from them. Like, I think as I've gotten older, I've realized the ways in which, you know, those hard conversations leave us open to being hurt by those people more. And I've gotten more versed at being like, well, what can you expect from these people? What are their emotional tools? Are they in the arena with you? Can they, is it worth it to have a vulnerable conversation with somebody who isn't showing up in the same way as you? So normally I feel like I would hesitate and just be like, well, maybe you should just let this lie and put some distance in your heart between you and this person. But even you in your letter say, if this was any other friend, I might just be like, okay, I'm done with them. But the history that you have with them, which doesn't outweigh how they've treated you, side note, but it seems like this person was a good friend to you at one time. And it seems like you are emotionally close with this person. And it would be okay of you. It wouldn't be hurtful. This is a conversation saying, hey, I would really like to talk about how this landed on me in the hardest time of my life, as an opportunity, not just for connection or for your friend to apologize and potentially do better, but an opportunity to be known. I'm telling you this because I want you to know me, right? Or I'm wondering, maybe you don't want to be known by this person anymore because while they held a closeness and an importance in your life for a long time, maybe you don't feel safe with them anymore. You don't feel safe being known. You can't trust them to be there for you. Yeah, friend breakups are so hard because we don't have the script. We don't have the rom-coms of friendships. You know, we don't have the podcast. We don't have podcasts dedicated to whether or not your friendship is healthy, you know, and you should dump them or whatever. It feels so much more nuanced. And it also, I want to acknowledge it's very unique to each person and their capacity to hold, quote, friends in their heart, in their community or whatever. I know a friend of mine who has like 1,000 good friends, you know, and they see each other every once in a while, and she's got beef with some of them, and but she would rather not be on good terms with a friend from 2 decades ago, but still call them their friend than cutting them out of their life. Does that make sense? Like our personal relationship to the relationships in our life is unique to us at our own capacity. Whereas me, I'm like, oh, okay, that person's not my friend anymore. In my mind, I say it in my mind,
yeah,
and nowhere else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And part of it also is like, you know, in my own experience of going through grief and noticing the ways that people showed up for me or didn't show up for me. Like some folks, I just realized weren't people that I could trust in those times, right? Like in the times when things were really bad, they weren't the people that were equipped to be able to do it. And it changed my understanding of them, and maybe it changed my relationship with them. But it was also just an opportunity for learning about them and saying like, okay, you know, this person, I still want to be friends with them. I still, you know, have the capacity to share with them and hang out with them and have fun with them, or, you know, or we talk about this stuff, but not the grieving stuff. And I think that that's okay. Right. You know, some of our folks are going to be ready to support us through hard times, and some folks aren't going to be ready for that because of all of the litanies of reasons why people aren't doing that. And so I think it's okay for you to kind of redefine the relationship with this person. But I think Sierra's right that you absolutely have the opportunity in this moment to tell your friend how this landed on you. You know, and I think that she deserves to hear it, and I think you deserve to say it out loud. And I know that you're afraid of confrontation, but this to me doesn't feel confrontational. It feels honest. right? It feels open. It feels vulnerable for sure, but it doesn't seem like you're accusing her of doing anything terrible. You're just saying, hey, here's how this landed on me. And I would love for us to figure out how we can move forward with this, right? You are somebody who's so important to me that I would like to talk about how we can go into a different iteration of this friendship that actually helps both of us feel supported. You've been there for me so long in the past, right? I'm having a hard time understanding why in this moment we couldn't figure out you couldn't figure out how to meet me in this, right? Like, I think that all of that deserves to be said. And my hope is that this friend will be able to sort of look at this or hear this and say, yeah, yep, I'm getting in my own way of being a good friend to you, right? And that's not what I'm trying to do. So what do we need, right? And maybe it is even you have a list of things that like could be helpful for you in any given moment, right? Where it's like, I don't need you to like help me process through that. I have a therapist, but I miss our conversations because it helps me in the moment get out of my head or whatever it is, right? Like so many different options that you could ask for. But I'm with Sierra on this one, that I think that you deserve it to yourself and to her to say something about what happened here, and how she responds will give you an indication of whether or not she is capable of being in a friendship with somebody who's grieving in this way. And that can help you decide whether or not you want to actually continue being friends with her. And also, if you don't want to talk to her about this, like that's also totally understandable, right? Like you can end this friendship if you would like to.
Your friend might respond to your truth by pulling away. But I do like what Sam said about like, this conversation could be the threshold to cross through to bring your relationship into a new era. And that new era could look like a lot of different things. It could look like your friend pulling away because she feels so bad and she doesn't know how to rectify it and yada, yada, and she doesn't have the tools, just yada, yada. Or it could look like, oh, okay, you've healed that wound, but you know now that you can't really rely on that friend moving forward. So you protect your heart in that way, but you still have her in your back pocket as a friend, as that person who knew your mother, as you know, so you still have that good relationship. It's just not quite as close or as safe as it used to be. Or the new iteration is maybe you don't talk anymore and the relationship lives in the past, and that is okay too. Or you cross that threshold and your friend and you both use that conversation as an opportunity to lean into the discomfort and do something differently, to show up to each other differently. And then that is the new era of the friendship. There's no wrong choice right now. And I kind of hinted at this earlier, but I heard the underlying idea of this in your letter. You've had a big couple years. You are still and will be grieving and changing and adapting and healing. And if you don't have the emotional, even the energy, the capacity to show up to this right now, you don't have to. You can let it sit for a minute. I know that you are doing a lot of emotional labor in many other realms of your life. And I also want to invite you to like lean in, have that conversation, because Sam said it so perfectly when they said, this is not a confrontation. This is not like you're scolding your friend. This is a conversation. This is you sharing, you know?
For sure.
So.
For sure. All this to say, this is just such a tricky situation to be in. And I totally understand and empathize with the idea that this isn't emotional labor you should have to be doing for this friend. You're the one that's at the center of this grief and of this pain, and folks should be coming to you. And I think that you absolutely deserve that. And I'm so glad that there are people in your life who are able to provide that for you. And, you know, if this friendship is as important to you as you're telling us it is, that this is one of your closest and oldest friends, sometimes our relationships go through periods of I don't know, separateness, right? Where we're both kind of not figuring out how to reach the other person or meet them. And I also think that there's the capacity for this relationship to find a way back on track. You know, I feel in my own heart that you two care about each other deeply. And in that care, there is an opportunity to be able to figure out how you want to move through and into something different about this relationship. And I sincerely hope that for you, because I want you to be surrounded by people who are loving and capable of holding you in what is the hardest time of your life.
Yeah. When we're honored to be a very small part of that community from afar.
Absolutely.
We love you so much.
Thank you so much for writing. We love you.
We hope this helps.
All right, everyone. It is Friday, and on Fridays, we set you up with a blind date. This week, we want to send you home with...
It is a dating app that was shared with us by one of our wonderful patrons over in our most recent office hours. If you don't know, you can join a monthly Zoom with Sam and I where we shoot the shit and we answer your questions live on Zoom. But anyway, one of our wonderful listeners shared that they just made a profile on the dating app Dateability, which is the quote only dating app for the disabled and chronically ill communities. And they actually asked us to shout it out because we had never heard about it. So we're super excited to share it. Their mission is that Dateability is the only dating app designed for the disabled and chronically ill communities. People with disabilities and chronic illness often encounter ableism on other dating apps. We understand the unique circumstances that present when dating with a disability, which is why we created a safe and accepting space to create meaningful connections for people with physical, intellectual, and psychiatric disabilities. LGBTQ+, lots of positive reviews. One of the things that I saw when I was looking into it more is that these are often issues when dating within these communities is that there's a smaller pool, but they have thousands and thousands and thousands of users. So this is really exciting to have this one all in one place. So check it out. We would love to share this blind date for y'all. Thanks to our listener for putting us on it. The app is called Dateability, and it is a dating app for the disabled and chronically ill communities.
Love it. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like more content from us, or if you would like access to those monthly office hours, you can support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get an additional bonus weekly episode, as well as access to those office hours. That's patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
You can slide into our DMs, send us your favorite relationship memes, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find merchandise.
Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need two random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media, original music, recording, editing, producing, all magical things by our good friend Spencer Worth Davis. Make sure to check out his podcast and his music. And remember, despite what you're going through, what you bring to the table, or what you're lacking, you deserve to be known truly and deeply and intimately. And if those around you can't support you in a way that makes you feel that way, there are others out there who will reciprocate that energy and vulnerability. And if all else fails,
just break up.